Well, hello everybody. My name is Richard Rice, and I'm here with Ms. Irene Johnson, who is the president of the Southside Neighborhood Association, and most recent president or of the resident council for the Southtown community as well.
Yes.
And I'm an attorney, a public interest attorney with the Rice Firm LLC. And today we're going to be speaking with you about the Southtown redevelopment. And I want to give you some background about a lawsuit that I filed on behalf of Ms. Johnson and 4 other residents of the Southtown public housing community back in 2017. We filed that lawsuit around September of 2017. It was maybe a few weeks before we had a mayoral runoff election, which was held on October 3rd of 2017. And after we filed the lawsuit in which we asked for an injunction, we did several press conferences to kind of build public awareness around the issues that were the core or center of the lawsuit. And I want us to get into some of that. But before we do, I'd just like to say welcome to you, Ms. Johnson. And I'd like for you to tell us why you initially contacted myself and April Collins to file a lawsuit on behalf of you and the residents of Southtown back in 2017.
Well, we as a resident was being ignored, completely ignored of what was going on. It wasn't giving no update information, and the information we was getting, it was incorrect. Because I check on just about everything that someone tell me that interests me, and the resident of Southtown. And so, once they took my title away as Southtown president, that put me on the outside entirely. But that didn't stop me. And so the more I asked for information, the more I was ignored. Private meetings and things was going on. And so next thing I think about was I was talking with someone. I can't recall who it was back then. And they gave me Attorney Rice's name. And I talked with you. And we got a lawsuit off.
Right. And before we filed a lawsuit, we held several meetings with the residents.
Yes.
You and I did. We had some meetings where we went around first and we canvassed the neighborhood and passed out flyers to try to get as many people involved with that process as possible. We did somewhat of a survey to find out what issues were most pressing to the residents. And some of the things that we found before we filed a lawsuit were really that many of the residents were just frustrated with the overall quality of life, the quality, the standard of the living spaces at Southtown. That was a really big concern. And like Ms. Johnson said, the other primary concern was the lack of information and transparency. There was a lot of uncertainty, and there didn't seem to be enough communication with the residents from the housing authority and with the developers at that time. I believe that, just to give some background information, I believe that there was an informal agreement for Southside Development Group or Southside Development Company to begin the redevelopment process on behalf of the Housing Authority as early as January of 2017, even though I know that there wasn't any type of master development agreement until recently, maybe within the last few months.
Yes.
But there was an informal agreement. Maybe there was a request for proposals that was submitted, and Southside Development Group was selected prior to us filing the lawsuit. Now, ultimately, our lawsuit was dismissed without prejudice around January of 2018. So that was after the runoff election had occurred on October 3rd of 2017. And we, like Ms. Johnson said, we filed the information to promote more transparency. We wanted to ensure that the Fair Housing Act would be followed, the Uniform Relocation Act. And some of those things that we were seeking at the time were to, one, make sure that the City of Birmingham addressed the historic disparity in housing that had been created by years of, just frankly racist housing policies. We can look at redlining and how that's impacted housing. We can look at the segregation rate in the City of Birmingham. Birmingham is still one of the top 10 most segregated cities in the nation. And, we're all familiar with the ways that those discriminatory housing policies were enforced in the 60s and in the 50s through physical violence and bombings and things of that nature. And what we found out through our research and filing the lawsuit is that So long as we continue to employ the same type of economic principles, the same type of economic policies as the sole basis of determining housing policy, then we'll naturally perpetuate that same disparity and discrimination in our housing policies. And primarily, what we wanted to do is to try to break that chain, to break that cycle. And in order to do that, it requires intentional action on behalf of the developers and on behalf of the City of Birmingham and on behalf of the Public Housing Agency, which is the housing authority of the Birmingham district in this particular case. And so those are the things that we were looking for. We also alleged in the lawsuit that there were some retaliatory actions that have taken place. Ms. Johnson is still, certainly believes and has reason, maybe so, as well, to believe that you were removed from your position as resident tenant council.
I don't
president.
believe it. I know.
You know it.
I was
And I understand that. And I think right now, we're in a position where the lawsuit was dismissed without prejudice. And we're not really looking necessarily to refile a lawsuit, more so than our objectives are the same. We would still like to, move forward with making sure that we further the motives or the objectives of the Fair Housing Act. And we would like to see that the residents' interests are met in terms of being included. I think that we've seen a lot of improvement on that front as well. And this is the first update that we've done on this development in several months now. And if anybody who's watching this video wants to kind of, get up to speed or take a look at some of the previous videos we've done, you can check out our Facebook page at Friends of Southtown, or you can check out our website at Grassroots Coalition. It's grassrootsbham.com is the actual web link. Or you can check out the ricefirmllc.com. That's the ricefirmllc.com. And hopefully we'll be able to put that information in the comments of this video once it's posted as well, so you'll be able to check that out. But where we are now today, I'd just like for Ms. Johnson to talk about, how things have maybe shifted and changed since the lawsuit was dismissed. Do you feel like the residents have been more engaged and more informed? And kind of what are some of your concerns right now?
Well, I think we have gotten beyond the point where the resident to be informed properly. It'll never happen. Everything will never be told to the resident. And the housing has been successful in removing the majority of the resident that was there. We got new resident in there. Majority of them haven't been there no time, maybe a year, 2 or 3 years. So they was misled in what to do. Use this tactic they call divide and conquer. Rather than bringing us together so that we can know what each other is thinking or wanting. And so it would separate us by hiring temp service or whatever to come in one-on-one or something of that nature. One-on-one is good, but it's not good when you don't know what is really going on and what they're really talking about. And when they give you ultimatum that you have to do this, have to do that. And so we are beyond that phase. Right now, the contractor said that they got the contract. I don't believe anything my executive director say. One slide to serve a time. I don't believe what you say. But just in case, if it's true, they got what they want. But that still leaves the part in there for the housing that they are bringing back, apartment units they are bringing back for the resident. Now, if they continue this as usual, in not only in Alabama but all over, put up the same, do the same thing they've always did. Put us here in a pile and leave us there, and no way to come out of that. But I want them to look beyond that now, since we are at this point. Now, get me right, I have no problem with Southtown coming down, because what a tax base that property is. But I want it to be, I would like to see it as not the same old public housing. Don't build back for me and back for the generation of now. Look beyond what will be needed for our new leaders coming, because anything can happen in their lives. And housing right now, public housing, not only here in Alabama, all over, they are building new ghettos. And those ghettos are called the Section 8 ghetto. That's where if you got a Section 8 voucher, you go into that neighborhood and you creating the same thing you have now in Southtown and other public houses around the United States in here. But build to look into the future as if there's young people out there with families, maybe two parties in the family bringing in an income. They got a decent place to live. Their schools are good for their children. But if they lose one of those incomes, what happens? Do they do the same old thing they have always done? Come to what we call the project of public housing. But now they won't be coming to the public house. They'll be going to the Section 8 ghetto. So why not have a decent place right here on this site where Southtown is being torn down, where people can come and still work and still send their children to affordable school, good school, and they also can have good transportation, access to good transportation, and afford it. Otherwise, it's pointless in saying that you are doing something for the people of Birmingham, of the state. And everyone in the city of Birmingham, or even in the county of Birmingham, should be concerned about this. Guess what? I'm talking about your grandchildren. Yours. When they get out there and start making their own living, their family, they need to be able to know if something happened, illness, something happened to my family, I don't have to go there and live. I'm a working person. I'm striving for better for my children, my family. There should be a decent place. Why not build the unit or apartment that's going to be there? You got the funding. That place is worth millions of dollars. And things set in place for that, for the future of that. Not just handed over for nothing.
That's right. That's right. And I agree with everything that Ms. Johnson has said. She's really looking ahead to see some of how this particular project can not only impact the current residents of Southtown or the current citizens of Birmingham, but also future generations. And, that's really what we want to talk about is restorative justice principles. Southtown was originally constructed in 1941. It was completed. And then there were some renovations in 2001 and 2003. But, it's one of those situations where it's in substantial need to be redeveloped further. And so the basis of our lawsuit was never really to stop the redevelopment, but was to make sure that the development itself, the economic development, was done in an equitable way, in a just way, in a way that incorporates restorative justice principles. And you have 26 acres that's centrally located in downtown Birmingham, 455 current low-income units, and so it presents a great opportunity for the city, like Ms. Johnson said, in terms of creating a tax base. It's my understanding that the Housing Authority now is going to lease the property, maintain ownership of the property, even though it would be developed by Southside Development Group or Southside Development Company. And then at the expiration of the tax credits that are being provided, that the Housing Authority would then have an opportunity to retain ownership or potentially sell the property at that time. And all of those types of things really have a big impact on what type of value is created for a quasi-governmental agency in the Housing Authority, and also on what type of revenue is created for the City of Birmingham as well. And what we're saying is that a portion of the revenue profit created should be used for restorative justice principles, in addition to being focused on the interests of current public housing residents in the City of Birmingham. And one of the ways that we propose for that to happen is through a community benefits agreement. And we have submitted a proposal, really an outline, to the Housing Authority and also to Southside Development Company and to the City of Birmingham, to the City of Birmingham to be to leverage its role in terms of leadership and influence, to promote the principles within the community benefits agreement. And in particular, what we would be looking for is to allow the stakeholders to participate in a process to specifically say what their individual interests are and in what ways can those interests be met through a collective bargaining process, a process in which the residents, community members from various churches, nonprofit organizations, communities surrounding Southtown, in what ways can they come together to implement an agreement that would allow them to all benefit directly from the Southtown project as it moves forward. And so, at this time, the community benefits agreement has not been rejected by any of the parties that I just mentioned. I think it has a strong chance to be implemented. However, there seems to be some type of a divide between the work that we're doing and potentially some of the leadership with the tenant council president. And I'm not really sure what the basis of that is. We do want to try to come together and work cooperatively. Our current mayor has expressed some general support. I guess Ms. Johnson maybe can speak to that more regularly. You've had several conversations with him. What's your take on what the city's position is on the community benefits agreement?
I believe the mayor is in support of this. I've talked to him several times, and I'm not going on a limb and say I trust him, because I do. And as you said, the resident council this is not about the resident council. The resident council only include public housing, not the citizen of Birmingham. This is new development that is coming off of Southtown from being torn down and redeveloped. It should be coming for the citizen. We are talking about the citizen, not the resident. And by the way, I am one of the residents. Now, you think you're going to build something for me? I am a senior. We got so many assisted living places. We got nursing home. We don't need anywhere else to live. So look to your citizen that is coming, your next leaders. Prepare for them. Take a page from the young people with the environmental protection of the, global warming. Take a page. Those are young people. They said, my grandchildren, my children. So I'm not going to have any more children. So look to that.
That's a good example. It is a good example because it's not just about, what our current interests are, but how can we look forward and seize this opportunity to really put us on a different track. And we understand that if we just allow the status quo to continue, then those same racist policies that we've all spoken about, and we talk about Birmingham being the mecca of civil rights for a nation and globally as well, what opportunity, responsibilities do we have to be able to see that we take advantage of this type of opportunity in redeveloping Southtown, 26 acres that's centrally located in downtown Birmingham, in a way that would allow us to break away from those type of disparities in housing that we know exists. And as I mentioned earlier, currently Southtown is 455 public housing units, low-income units. And with the new development, it's my understanding that our current mayor, when he was candidate Woodfin, he sat down with us in a press conference, basically said that he supported a one-for-one replacement, and I think he's been consistent in continuing to say that he supports a one-for-one replacement. And I think that is a good position in a way, but I also think that we could be more nuanced in what we're promoting, because what we understand is that in order to redevelop Southtown, the current residents have to be temporarily relocated before there is a permanent relocation or an opportunity to return. And what we've seen in previous public housing redevelopments is that once folks are temporarily moved for the reconstruction, most of the time they don't want to move again because there's so many transaction costs. Some of them are economic, but a lot of them are emotional, because we have so many types of spiritual and emotional bonds and attachments to the places that we live. And so that's something that's important to keep in mind too. And so what I'm saying is that in terms of being more nuanced is that many of the residents who are currently saying they want to return to Southtown may change their mind and may not necessarily be able to at a point in the future. And so we may have an opportunity to create additional value or revenue with this particular property and then still utilize that for the benefit of those residents, so long as they're relocated within the city limits, within the same school district if they have children, and also if they're elderly, within a range in which they can still meet their medical needs and whatnot. All right, so one of the things that we were mentioning previously was that we appreciate the support that we received from the City of Birmingham through the mayor's office in advocating for a one-for-one replacement. But based on the practicalities and the opportunities presented by Southside redevelopment process, we could potentially even not necessarily pursue a higher goal, but we could maybe create larger benefits that could be then kind of spread over not only for the current residents of public housing or the citizens of Birmingham, but also they could put us on a new trajectory in terms of the way housing policy works in the city of Birmingham. And one of the ways that we're proposing to achieve that is through a community benefits agreement. And a community benefits agreement is a legally binding document. I mean, it is actually a contract, and it puts the residents leaders, the neighborhood association, the surrounding communities around Southtown, individual stakeholders, nonprofit groups, churches, religious organizations, community advocates at the table with the developers, with the housing authority, with representation from the city, and then it creates this process by which everyone's interests can be voiced and can be analyzed and taken into consideration when determining how the net positive benefits created by this redevelopment process will then be utilized or dispersed. And it's a way to promote equitable economic development at its core. And it's my understanding that the state of Alabama has never implemented a community benefits agreement. So it's another opportunity for Birmingham to live up to its reputation as being a civil rights mecca. And we know that housing is a fundamental human right, and it's something that's at the core of so many quality of life statistics that we see. And so this idea of saying we want to have a one-for-one replacement, first, you have to look at the practicality. What does that really mean when it plays out? Well, first, you have to make sure that the residents qualify to return. That was a big issue that Ms. Johnson spoke about in some of our previous videos. And then once they qualify and they elect to return, that process of returning first will still require them to temporarily be moved out of the community in order to allow for the redevelopment to take place. So they would temporarily go to a new location. And the statistics bear out that once individuals are temporarily relocated, a lot of time there's attrition. And so that initial number of people that say that they would want to return, it goes down substantially. But right now, the 455 units that we currently have for public housing low-income units, I'm being told there's going to be about 200 to 250 low-income or affordable housing units. I think we really need to be careful and understand the difference between low-income and affordable housing, and make sure that when we're using those terms, we're not necessarily using them interchangeably. That we understand that these public housing units can sometimes be replaced with subsidized housing, but that subsidy may not be sufficient. It may not be the market rate, but it may not still be affordable for some members of our community. But in any event, if we have 240 or 250 units within the new housing development that are going to be reserved as affordable or low-income housing, what we want to make sure is that that's the best way that we are moving forward with this project, and that we're actually going to have that number of residents that are going to be returning, or are those units going to be for other people from the city of Birmingham who previously didn't necessarily live at Southtown. And I say all that to say that there may be an opportunity for us to even reduce that number even further, but still make sure that those residents are interests are taken into account, and that we're abiding by the Fair Housing Act, we're abiding by the Uniform Relocation Act, where we're still implementing individualized relocation plans. And potentially maybe there's an opportunity to generate additional revenue if we reduce that number, and then to utilize that for the implementation of this community benefits agreement. And I would just like for Ms. Johnson to talk to us a little bit about, why she believes it's important for the Friends of Southtown group, the residents that she is working on behalf of, to be involved in this process. I mean, she is the neighborhood president for Southside. That's one reason, clearly. And so we know that she would have to be included in that process. But what are some of the other unique reasons why you should be involved in this process, Ms. Johnson?
The most important reason I am a resident there. The next most important reason is I'm a senior. In some way you got the idea that you're building something back for me. I don't need anything. When I say me, I'm speaking of the seniors. And it's very important to me to see new leaders, young leaders, being able to get involved in their future. We don't cap it, excuse me, off at this point with this development. Make it to benefit them. Now, the resident that live there, if they're eligible to come back, residents are being evicted sometimes 12, 10 a week. These are new residents. I don't believe that, they will be trying to come back. And if they were, no one, people that do not work, disabled people deserve a chance, but do not work when they're able to work. We have to be very careful because we're trying to change the old mode, but we also trying to fix it where it's affordable for these people that are working and have family and can have a decent place to live and their children a place to education and all of this. We must look at that, look ahead. And if the resident council housing put up this benefit program we are talking about, you're not moving ahead. You're in the same old spot because HUD, CFR, always been there, and it's still there. Said the resident council should have a place on the HABD board, should do this, to do that, and be a spokesman for the resident public housing. But we are not just only talking about public housing. We beyond that. I am. And so the resident council shouldn't have anything to do with this. That's my opinion, but it doesn't make it right. The people, the organization, different organizations, nonprofit organizations, churches and things, they're the ones should be concerned about this, involved in this, on these boards and things, to make decisions. And you said this place is going to be leased to the real company, the real estate company? What do you think? In 50 years, you're going to say, well, we're going to rescind the lease. No longer can you. What you going to do? Dig the buildings up on the property and move on? No. That's stupid. You're going to sell that. Or probably be already sold before it even come back. This is how business is done. It's done when there's no one there, a gate watcher, so to speak. That's about all I got to say.
That's true. I agree. And what I'm hearing is that there needs to be checks and balances, and that we need to have an independent, autonomous body or group of individuals involved in the process to ensure that the current interests of all of the public housing residents are met, the citizens of the City of Birmingham's interests are met, but also, are we being responsible to future generations as well?
Yes.
And are we perpetuating economic policies that have baked within them discriminatory practices or racist intent, even if we don't still have those same ideals today? If we're perpetuating the economic system and policies that were built off of those policies, then we will still continuously lead to the same result, where we have the wealth gap that we see between the black community and the white community, where we see segregated neighborhoods. And again, housing is a fundamental human right that is inextricably linked to so many quality of life factors. And so we really want to see that this opportunity is maximized, and that's why we're here today. Our objective is not to refile another lawsuit. Our objective when we filed the initial lawsuit wasn't to file it for the sake of filing it. In addition to actually seeking the relief that was specifically stated in the complaint, we also were initiating a public awareness campaign. And that's a big component of what we do in a public interest law firm, is to raise public awareness around these critical issues. And so a lot has changed since we filed this lawsuit in September of 2017. We have a new mayor now at City Hall. Our previous mayor basically stated that if we develop the downtown of Birmingham, if we develop it, then as we continue to develop it and the downtown grows, then those benefits will trickle down or trickle out to the other 98 neighborhoods in the city of Birmingham. Whereas, that a previous mayor basically said that the downtown is like the living room, and so you should invest in it more because that's what everybody sees first, and you don't have to so much worry about some of the other rooms. Now, Our current mayor, in regards to Southtown, is been consistent with saying he supports a one-for-one replacement. And we've discussed today in this video how we think that is a noble aspiration and an achievable goal, but we also talked about how we could nuance that a little bit more. Our current mayor also specifically said that, we were going to judge the success of this administration by the lowest quality of life neighborhood out of those 99 neighborhoods. And I think that is a very noble aspiration and something that we should really strive to live by in this situation and as we continue to move forward. And so all of those things have changed since we initially filed the lawsuit in 2017, and we have engaged in some positive communications with the leadership of the Housing Authority, with the leadership of the Southside Development Company. We've had ongoing communications with the City of Birmingham. Ms. Johnson has spoken directly with the mayor on numerous instances, just one-on-one, since that previous lawsuit was dismissed. And so, we think that, yes, ma'am. Yes, go ahead.
I supported the mayor in the 101, but now 101 is out of the bark part. It's not playing with 101. Because 101, those people are gone. They were already taking vouchers and move out of there. The people we have now, some been there 6 months, probably some 1 year. And when you use that term, if you're eligible, they really don't have to do anything for you. And public housing is not a place to come to stay forever. You come to get your foot up, move on, to better yourself. So us that is there need to move on. Now, young families and things, that's a different story. But not look at just bringing them. You're not going to bring them back. They gone. These people's here just walking in.
Right, and that's a good point as well, because the one-for-one replacement really is about protecting the community, those residents that had ties to the community, and again, this idea of gentrification that we have all come to know this term now. And gentrification is a process by which people are displaced, a lot of times because of the economics, but it's also about the historic and cultural integrity of neighborhoods and of the city. And we also want to protect the demographic makeup of the city for political reasons, maybe as well, with Birmingham having the unique position that it has in this state of Alabama as well. So those are all other considerations of gentrification. It's not just about people being moved around out of their neighborhood, which is a big component of it, but it's the process by which they're moved. And if moving is taking place, is it happening at such a substantial degree that it's changing the overall cultural identity of the neighborhood or the political identity, if you will, of that neighborhood as well. I would also like to say that I think the Housing Authority has done a great job of having more involvement of the residents since the lawsuit has been dismissed. There's been, numerous meetings that have taken place, community meetings, actually on the campus of Southtown. And I think that's very positive, and I wanted to give credit for that as well. And if you're watching this video, I'd invite you to take a look at our the grassrootsbham.com website. Or you can also go to the ricefirmllc.com if you want more information on this. And of course, we have our Friends of Southtown Facebook page, which this video will be posted there, and on our YouTube page as well. And if you have specific questions for me about getting involved or what you can do to support this effort, you can give me a call at 205-618-8733. Thank you to Ms. Johnson again for joining us and for continue to be a leader on this fight. And, you've been working on these issues well before 2017 when you and I started to work on these issues together. But I just want to say thank you for all your work that you're doing. And like you said, a lot of this isn't really for you necessarily. It's for other people. It's for future generations. And so that's very admirable, and it's something I think we can all draw inspiration from. Did you have any closing words or thoughts, Ms. Johnson?
I think we got it all.
Okay.
I think we did.
All right. Well, thank you again. And, again, please stay in tune to this particular issue as we continue to move forward in support of a community benefits agreement.